Hi everyone, and welcome back to another Therapy Tip Tuesday. Again, my name is Miss Rachel, and for the month of October, I'm going to be sharing with you my favorite therapy tips. So for this week's video, I am going to be discussing how to elicit speech and language while playing with bubbles. Bubbles have always been something that I've kept in my bag of therapy materials that just never gets old. Bubbles can be used as a great tool when targeting oral motor goals, such as lip rounding, since the individual needs to round and protrude their lips when creating the bubbles. They have also been found to be very motivating and can be great reinforcers throughout the therapy session. So let's get started on some ways you can use bubbles to elicit speech and language. And at the end of the video, I'm going to be sharing with you a little recipe on how to create DIY bubbles at home. Using bubbles can be a great way to target speech sounds, especially early developing speech sounds when working with your infants or toddlers. Some early sounds for typical development include the B sound, the P sound, and the M sound. Some words that include these speech sounds you can use during bubble play include bubbles or blow before you blow the bubbles, pop while you pop the bubbles, and more to request more bubbles. In the past, I've even laminated words that include the child's target speech sounds in them and either place them on the floor or tape them on the wall. I would engage the child in an activity where they would blow their bubbles, and wherever the bubbles landed, that's the word that they would practice. This is a really fun activity and a great way to get your child active when practicing their speech sounds. Next, bubbles can be great for targeting early language goals. You can target attributes by describing the bubbles as they float through the air with words such as many, few, big, small, clear, or whatever color the bubble may be. You can use or target vocabulary when playing with bubbles by describing or naming the objects that the bubbles land on, such as the table or the chair. You can target verbs when using bubbles. You can work on verbs such as stomp, run, pop, blow, fall, or float. You can also target locative concepts when playing with bubbles. You can state things such as bubbles up or bubbles down when blowing the bubbles. And you can have the child request where they want you to blow the bubbles. Lastly, you can target sentence expansion while playing with bubbles. As I stated in my last video, you want to speak at or slightly above the language level that your child has in order to increase their chances of comprehending what you are saying. You can model 2 to 3 word utterances or expand on their utterances by saying things such as blow bubbles, or blow more bubbles, or I want more bubbles. And you can continue to expand on these utterances with the ways that I explained prior. Bubbles can also be great to use for children who may be working on later developing language concepts. So you can target following directions by blowing bubbles up in the air and having the child pop which ones you tell them to. This is a great opportunity to focus on spatial concepts. You can have the child pop the bubble under the desk or next to the chair. You can also target sequencing, and this could be great for when you are making your own bubbles at home, and I will be sharing that recipe with you very, very soon. You can start by organizing the materials on the counter and sequence the steps to make the bubbles. You can start with first, you want to measure the corn syrup. Next, you want to pour it into a bowl, and so on. So here is my recipe for making bubbles in your home if you don't already have bubbles to use. Most homes typically have these few ingredients, which makes this super convenient and easy. The ingredients that you will need include 1/3 cup original Blue Dawn dishwashing soap, 1 1/4 cup of water, 2 tablespoons of sugar, and the sugar acts as an agent to help the bubbles stick, which makes for bigger bubbles. And an additional ingredient that is optional could be food coloring to make for colorful bubbles. So the steps for creating our bubbles include starting with mixing the water and sugar until the sugar dissolves. And then next you slowly add the dishwashing liquid, being careful not to make it too sudsy. Next, you'll divide the mixture into deep, airtight containers, and you'll want them deep enough so you could place your bubble wand in the container. And then you can add the food coloring as desired. Usually you can add between 5 to 10 drops of food coloring to get the nice color that you want. And then you're all set. Super, super easy. So this recipe is best used for outside and when wearing play clothing, since the bubbles and the bubble mixture will tend to stain. I hope you enjoyed this week's therapy tip, and I look forward to seeing you next week for my next and final Therapy Tip Tuesday.